My name is Chris Klein. I work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in their Utah Ecological Services field office in Salt Lake City. I'm a contaminant specialist. I run a fund that is made up of settlement funds from an environmental injury settlement. We are using those funds to restore natural resources that were injured by the Sharon Steel mill, which is just north of here. We've been involved in this project since 1998. The settlement dollars were actually in 1991. The Big Bend was proposed as a project in 1998. It's been through several phases of, getting somewhere and then not. Since about 2011, this has been going forward and picking up momentum, and we're actually making a ton of progress, and we're seeing the light at the end of the river here. The history of the Sharon Steel site is the Salt Lake Valley. When it was originally developed, the settlers started developing the mining in the valley. Basically from the early 1900s to maybe 1930, 1940, this entire valley was just lined with smelters and processing facilities. And the Sharon Steel site was one of the biggest steel mills. So this plant was established in the early 1900s. Back then, rivers and wetlands were the low places where you dumped stuff. So eventually those tailings got big enough that they actually channelized the river around the tailings pile, which is why the river makes what's called the Big Bend. So they displaced the river and changed the channel, ended up contaminating the river, far downstream, removed the trees and resources around here, destroyed habitat for migratory birds, poisoned fish, poisoned birds, was not healthy for people either. Well, in the 1970s, there was a bunch of environmental legislation passed, one of which was called CERCLA, or the Superfund is what most people know it. And the purpose of that program was to address these old sites that had legacy contamination. And so that was what the Sharon Steel site was. There was a settlement in 1991, but the point of the compensation that we get for these sites is that we use it on restoration. It's not punitive, it doesn't go into the general fund. It's used to bring back the resources that were injured by those industrial activities.
We have a passion for helping people and bringing people together with nature, particularly at restored sites. So taking a place where there was injury, there was harm, there was hazard, from contamination to wildlife, reducing water quality, prohibiting people from using a place, and being able to clean that up, working with numerous partners, particularly the local communities, being able to partner with those groups to get them back to a place and be able to use it is really what drives us. Personally, it's really great to come to a place to see the stage it's in, recognizing it's kind of in an intermediate phase in restoration, but to think that 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, what this place could look like and what it offers for people is really tremendous.
We are in what's an early restoration phase right now, about halfway through building the project. One of the things that happened when they rerouted the river, and then also flood control, they've dredged the river a lot, they've straightened the river. So behind us back here, the river is basically running down a rifle barrel with 10-foot sides. So a big centerpiece of this project is to build a new channel for the river that'll have a 600-foot wide floodplain, which will actually allow the river to function better. So as the water comes up, it will be able to spread out, and that slows it down, and then it also allows the water to sink down into the soils, and then it gets stored there actually. So that's a key aspect of our restoration, is to restore how the hydrology here works.
So in 2015, the West Jordan City Council asked the company I'm working for to develop a set of concepts. We developed 3 different concepts. One was a low-level concept, one was a medium level, and one was very high ecological value. We developed these different estimates, and the City Council of West Jordan voted to select the most expensive and the most ambitious project, which would create a 600-foot wide floodplain area and re-meander the Jordan River all the way through the property.
I became aware of the Big Bend project while I was on the city council prior to me being the mayor. We had some city council meetings, and they came to the meeting and shared with us they were looking for us to approve some funds for the Big Bend. And I thought, what is this Big Bend? It apparently had been going on for years before that, and I didn't even know about it. So I did a little research into it. I was excited to know what was happening in our own city right here on the Jordan River. As a young child, my father built a canoe, and to test it, he brought me out to the Jordan River, and I floated down the Jordan River in a canoe. That was back in the 60s. So today, to come back and see this river and know that it's still here, and was almost forgotten in this area, and now we're bringing attention back to it, and it's been just this gem hidden in the middle of our valley. I'm excited to see life brought back to this river.
We had a number of different stakeholders, about 40 different stakeholders, and we got what they thought were opportunities for the site. And it was determined that community fishing pond would be part of the site to give back to the people. So about half the site has been set aside for ecological restoration, and the other half is set aside for people. And then we've started to develop this low and broad floodplain over here. We brought the land surface about 5 or 6 feet down to bring it closer to that groundwater, and then we planted cottonwoods that are 3 feet deep in order to reach that groundwater. We've also done a significant amount of invasive species control. There are noxious weeds across the site. We've done site cleanup, removal of fences, just naturalizing the site overall. This used to be a 12-foot vertical eroding bank. It was eroding because there were no trees or shrubs to hold it together, and the Superfund site is to the north. So the river basically bounced off of the Superfund site, which has been solidified, and it pushed back this way and eroded this site. So with our partners, we worked together, and this was one of the objectives, was to keep fine sediment from going into the river. And so we laid this back at a 3-to-1 slope. We put the trails in and the rocks and other things like that to provide places for people. And then we did some restoration. This is called bioengineering, where you use plants to stabilize the soils. And so we laid this bank back, and this part here, we actually wrapped with a coir matting, which is made of coconut fiber. It's called a soil wrap, and we wrapped it, and you can see in a couple little places, it looks like little ropes tied together, and you can see just a little bit of it here. This is just designed to keep the soil in place until the vegetation can get established. And folks have noticed you trip over a couple of these stakes. These stakes hold down the matting so that when the flood water comes up, it doesn't all erode away. Right now, there's about 10 cubic feet per second in the Jordan River, and it can get up over 1,000 cubic feet per second, which is a common metric for flow in water. It's pretty low. You can see there's not much water here in the Jordan River. It flooded about 750 or 950 last year, and it actually was over my head right here, so it covered this area. And what you can see is there's no damage because we've given the river more room, and then we've also planted the plants that can handle those types of circumstances. So you can see here, you know, we have this fringe of wetland plants right at the edge of the water, native wetland plants. We've been planting pollinator species. You can see box elders and willows and cottonwoods out here that just create that biodiversity, and that's what creates resilience, and that's what brings people out here.
One of the things that we've learned as we've done these restoration projects is you really have to start with the community that it's in, because if you don't have a site that has stewards, it won't succeed, it won't be durable. And so community science is a way to bring people who are not professional scientists, and it's everything from high school kids, college students, just people who are interested in birds or interested in plants, retirees, people from all over the valley, all communities, bringing them together to not only connect with nature at the river, but also learn about how nature works and learn about ecosystems. We've been developing this citizen science, participatory science monitoring program for a couple years, and we've brought different partners together, getting out in the field, seeing what this place looks like, and actually making those connections. It's like the connections that we've made with the collaborators is an example of the connections that we can expect and hope that people will make with this site and with each other.
I'm an ecologist at Sage Lane Collaborative, and we are partnering with Natural History Museum of Utah, as well as River Restoration Incorporated, Tracy Aviary, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and other partners to invite people to behind the scenes visit to this really cool restoration site.
What's cool about this plant is it actually blooms late in the year. So, different plants, they bloom at different times of the year to take advantage of different pollinators that are coming up. So this is a late bloomer, which is really cool. My job was leading the team of pollinators, and I led community members around to look at different flowers, and we were looking for pollinators, things like bees, bumblebees, wasps, ants, and even hummingbirds. So what a BioBlitz can do in terms of the general public is that it's a way to allow folks to participate in the scientific process. Here at the Big Bend, this is a restoration site, and we are trying to return it back to a natural environment. And we need information so that we can understand where we are today and where we're going to go in the future. So we're really happy when people are interested in plants and insects and the birds and everything in between.
Then I heard about the Big Bang and the restoration project, and they invited to come here and then potentially bring students so that they can get to explore biology in real life and see how through many years we can actually restore this beautiful site. So right now I just brought a couple of my students, so I just wanted to expose them to what it is to become a biologist in training. So right now I'm trying to look for is plants and pollinators, that's my area. My goal today to look what kind of pollinators are at the Big Bend and how does that change through time.
I learned that you guys are doing some restoration out here, and I just think that's pretty cool. I love nature and I feel at home in nature, and I don't want there ever to be a place that you can't go and escape the city. And I think it's really important here, especially that it's so close to the city, that it needs to be a place that will not go away.
This is our Ideal Farms program. We have a native plant nursery. We're trying to get kids doing real life work in restoration. So we've raised everything from ponderosa pines to catfish. So when they come out and they can see and transplant a plant, see it grow, see it start from just a little cutting all the way up to a full tree, it's rewarding. I've had many kids come out and say, "Can we go outside today, Mr. Z?" So it really is a release, and it's something that the kids need. There's a whole movement out there about no child left inside. That's what we're trying to espouse here, is that we have an outdoor classroom. We also have been able to just work with the school district. They gave us some space, and we're building an outdoor education space.
I love getting outside. We learn a lot from it. We have actually a couple classes. We have floriculture, ag biology, and it's so nice to just know what's going on our planet and in the environment and how we can impact that, and so it's not just a lost cause.
As I've been doing this process and working in this program for almost 20 years now, what I've learned, like I mentioned earlier, if you don't have stewards, if you don't have somebody who cares for the site and takes care of it, it will not succeed. I think citizen science is a key factor in making those connections and bringing people back to the river, because it's an invitation to learn and understand things more deeply.
Wait guys, I got two!
So that connects people not only just with the river, but with the natural world, with stewardship, with the understanding that, you know, as there's more and more people in the world and more development, we have to actually steward and tend these places. They can't just take care of themselves anymore, particularly in a heavily developed place like this. And so you're essentially taking ownership, creating and growing something, creating love, creating caring. And so I think that citizen science component, by increasing understanding and getting people to literally be walking and looking down and saying, oh, what is that butterfly? That butterfly is always here when this plant is here. And noticing those relationships and interconnections. It's like you start seeing the interconnections and you start understanding how you're connected too, and how you're part of this, and how you have a critical role to play.